What's going on, guys? This episode, I'm interviewing Joel Tellier. He's a gym owner from Toronto, Canada, with a really interesting background in creative design and branding. So he's an expert in branding, and we go through all elements of how your brand speaks to your target audience. And what gym owners should do or not do when it comes to logo design, their color schemes, and how they design their brand, because it will influence your audience and how you're perceived in the marketplace. Really interesting stuff. That's why I brought him in, because he really fascinated me when I first met him. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you do, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. Share it with your friends because we're trying to grow some content here. So let's dive in. All right, welcome to Little Jim Big Heart, my interview series. Today, I'm with a guy that I just met. I'm going to call him a friend at this point. Out in the Business of Strength event in Scottsdale, Arizona, Joe Tellier from Stay Gold Gym Fitness in Toronto.
Yeah, it's Joel Tellier. That's how new friends we are. We don't even know each other's names
What did
properly,
I
but
say?
it's
What did I just say?
Joe.
Oh,
So
that might have been a
all right.
misspeak. Joel Tellier.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all good. Yeah, everything's good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Um, well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. One of the reasons that I reached out to you, one, you've got a really successful two locations in the Toronto area. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, we have a second location. We just opened like 5 months ago. So yeah.
That's awesome. You won the business or gym owner of the year at the Business of Strength. So I caught my attention and wanted to, connect with you. And your background is really fascinating and what I think is really interesting. And I'd love to kind of talk through your background and how it might apply to people listening.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is, yeah, it's a little unconventional, but that's kind of why it exists right now. Is because I just didn't feel like I had a fitness space that felt like it was for me or I belonged in, and so I had to kind of create my own. But yeah, but my background is I'm art director, creative director, designer, branding kind of expert. And yeah, I kind of always lived in this two worlds where it's like the one is the competitive athletics sports place and doing all kinds of different things. Like I was a competitive pole vaulter in high school, which is a weird thing to do because I was also the only one in my school that did it. And coach, like we didn't even have coaches. We just found a bunch of poles and then I became like, I just pulled them out and we've got a bunch of the shot putters who could lift heavy things, put all these mats together. And I just started jumping over some bars so I guess that's like maybe a good example of where things started. I was a bit of a self starter, and even in my creative direction design careers, I'm an independent contractor, and I have been for many years. So yeah, I was running my own business there and building teams and kind of creating these great creative groups of creatives and bring them together and figuring out how to work together. And then yeah, and then this opportunity, and oddly enough, the person helping me set up this podcast right now is the person that kind of got me into the gym fitness space and started Stay Gold with me. It's my friend Danny, and he's just off camera. But yeah, he owned a gym for a very long time, and I trained there for a long time, and then that was kind of like dissolving, and I was like, all right, where are you opening your next one? And he's like, I'm not. And I said, you should. And he said, you should. And I said, no. And then I did. And then now we're here, but many years later and through a lot of bullshit along the way, but we're here anyway.
Well, so walk through, give me the 10-second overview. So your background, where did you walk through your path in creative direction and how long have you had Stay Gold? And then I think that's a
Yeah.
good jumping off point.
Yeah, sure. Okay. As far as the creative direction design side of things, I've always been a designer. That's where I went to school for. I was studied like classical animation, hand drawn, that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then I just kept, going along my way. I'm a pretty like kind of a workaholic a little bit, so I just keep making things, building things, creating things. And then when I was, I don't know, about maybe 10 years ago or so, I took a gig at Vice Media and was in-house there as the head of creative, and I built a team there, and we were doing a lot of really really cool stuff there, just like really fun, really high profile uh, projects, a lot of like branding, a lot of different things within Vice, and then kind of jumping around to co-branded things, like working with other huge brands, Google. I mean, huge airlines. I don't know, just so many different, almost more projects. I've forgotten more projects
Yeah.
along the way than I can remember. So it's an interesting place to kind of go with that. I was like, what did you do for this company? I'm like, I don't even know anymore. There's been so many. And then as far as starting the business, the gym, it was we started off as an open gym kind of space, just trying to like create space for people to come in and do whatever they wanted to do. And then it's grown into, I mean, this monster of what it is, which is open gym and personal training and indoor and outdoor and sauna and ice bath and classes and multiple rooms. And we have an acupuncturist and a vitamin injection place. And then we have the studio here. And then we have another location and all the same things over there as well. And yeah, so it's gone a little nuts over the last few years.
Yeah, so I don't even know if I knew, the dynamic of your facility. I guess I just assumed it was more similar to a lot of the other gyms that are in that sphere with the business of strength guys. Shout out Dan and Joe, and Adam. Um, but before we get into that side of things, what does a creative director do? So like, if you
Uh,
can give an overview of like what is your role in a project like at Vice?
Yeah. Well, it kind of be different things. That's kind of almost the problem with the title creative director, because you can be coming at it, you can be contributing in all kinds of different ways. Oftentimes, there's a creative director that's more copy focused, like words and concept, and then another one, the other side of it is the more visual side of things. So
Right.
you'll come at it from two different places, but they're in the end you call it the same thing. I'm more on the visual side of things. I certainly do create the other side as well, but yeah, we I was responsible for every visual representation of Vice that came out of working out of the Toronto office and out of the New York office, to a degree, and a little bit out of the UK as well. And yeah, it was we were every TV show we made, we would have to design, what that show looks like internally while you're watching the show, like all the graphics and motion graphics and then the title sequence, the opening, the commercial break bumpers we called them, and then all the marketing collateral that goes along with that to create, like, what how do we get people to watch this thing? How do we
Right.
differentiate it from everything else on the slate? But also looking at things holistically and making sure all of these projects feel like they belong under the one umbrella, the Vice umbrella. So it's kind of like, it's a little bit, I always think of it as you sort of blurring your eyes and feeling what feels right, as opposed to having hard lines on what is right or what is allowed. I think it's easier. I mean, easier for me, I think, maybe at the place I'm at right now, where I work more on feeling. But initially, you might have some strict parameters that you want to stay within, and then that helps you like create a cohesive product that you're putting out into the world.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's impossible to describe it in a simple overview,
Yeah.
but so we can move on because
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little
let's
complicated.
the gym side. It's a very unique background. What elements of that work do you feel like has maybe helped you and maybe even hindered you in running a fitness business?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, definitely. So I started out with thinking that it was one way, and I've definitely changed the way I've thought about that. And that's an interesting question, I get, because for those reasons. Um, so yeah, so initially, I wanted to make everything polished and perfect and all these great things out there. And then what I realized in a very short period of time is that, it might take me a month or 2 months to create this really great ad, like really great ad. It's great. It's like, but it's one
Right.
ad that took that much time. And it's like, well, you can just put a camera up and just talk to it. And the value of that is so much greater because you're a person talking to another person, or you're being genuine, or being like, it's just coming from the heart, or coming from just you're just trying to really just communicate in a very base level, pure kind of a way, and that resonates so much more, especially in the gym and fitness world, or at least for me at the scale that we're at. And yeah, and it was kind of interesting to kind of shift gears and be like, no, 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 actually, don't don't aim so high, because you're gonna miss. everyone that really, I mean, I would say like people want to give, let's say in the gym business, it is about giving, you're taking money for a service, right? But what's people want to give money to a person rather than, especially these days, they want to give money to a person, to a group of people, as opposed to a giant conglomerate corporation.
Right.
We'd rather shop at the mom and pop shop than Walmart, for the most part. If you had a choice, if there's one right next to another and they have the same products, that's where you would go. And that's the way culture is. So that's an understanding that I've gotten over many years working in fitness and in trying to brand ourselves and putting our voice out there, that um, meet people at their level. Don't try to be this giant aspirational, especially if you can't. Like if you're one person or just a few people trying to put this thing together, trying to get this thing off the ground, it's like you're not going to ever reach that high goal if you tried to become an Equinox or whatever you want to become. It's You're going to fall short, and so maybe just change the game.
And are you saying that from literally an ad perspective? Like, don't try to get some crazy production team that's going to look like a primetime Super Bowl commercial. Just be yourself. Is that kind of what you're speaking on, or do you mean that from a physical gym level?
I think it actually, it's pretty universal. It's across the board. Uh, I mean, the fitness experience that I'm more comfortable with, like I like cinder block walls and
Yeah.
a little bit of rust with, no, not dirty, but like
Right.
clean, but rough around the edges. I feel comfortable in that environment, and it does, take the edge off of people if you try to be too posh, too crisp, and too clean, people are going to expect that across the board, and it might not be sustainable. You might be able to open day one like that, but can you do it, sustainably over time? And I would also say the same thing for marketing and ads. Like they should feel like they belong together, and that's what I was sort of saying about like Vice and creating these products that live within the Vice umbrella. It's the same kind of deal with your gym. It's like your gym is the umbrella, and you have to make your ads feel like they belong within the gym. They were in, I mean, create them in the gym, like shoot them in the gym, like make sure people feel the same thing when they walk in the door as they do when they're watching you on social media.
Yeah. And is it also, on that note, on just the congruence, because I guess I would, for clarity's sake, if you don't try to produce or put yourself out there as something that is inauthentic to you, because it won't last anyway. Because I would challenge, like, maybe you are like a super organized, very buttoned up, ultra professional, and you want to portray yourself like that. I think that would be congruent with your personal identity and the personal brand. But that's never been me. My original location and all of our locations have a little bit of like grit to them, and I like it that way.
Yeah.
Um, so I would obviously never go the ultra production route and try to portray myself that way, because I don't think it's that congruent with the stamp that I have on my stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's why I sort of jumped down that train to begin with, because we're like, understand your brand, I've seen your brand, and it aligns pretty well with my own as far as like our approach to things. So certainly, yeah. And this is just I'm not saying this is an absolute. Certainly,
Right.
if you are aiming for that, if you have the budget and you have the time, you have the people, you have the energy, and that's your goal, then make what things that are congruent to your goal, or within the brand that you want to be creating. So I just find that, if I lower the bar a little bit, I can produce 10 times more stuff, and it works better than if I tried to make it twice as good. I make less than half as much stuff, and it actually wouldn't work as well for my space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk branding, because when we met, we were enjoying a couple old fashions together after a 2-day event of learning, and it's very obvious how passionate you are about brand, how brand can influence people. Um, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how seriously you feel brand should be taken, and maybe even start with like what should people do or not do when it comes to creating a brand, and really what is a brand?
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's pretty broad, right? Because a brand is really every representation of, I mean, oftentimes yourself if you are the face of the brand, but but also all the people you're hiring, the language you're speaking, the way that you speak it, where you speak it, the partners you bring on, the events you participate in, the obviously the space you're in, the and then to me what it comes down to and what it is, and everybody always thinks about this. I don't know if they think about it first. I always think about it first, but the logo and your graphic design and that to me is the heart of it. To me, your logo, a lot of places, I find, I don't know, I can't really tell which one because I don't really want to have the conversation without offending somebody, uh, but I can't tell if they don't value it as much as they should, or they just can't see it the way maybe other people can see it. And I think that's so branding is everything in general, and it's like really, really that's incredibly broad and maybe a little difficult for people to grasp, out of the gate, especially if you're not coming from the industry that I came from. Um, but yeah, I think of it your logo. Think about the first impression people are going to get, the front page of your website, the landing page on your Instagram. Think about that as your face, like literally the face of your business. So and I, everybody, we all try not to, but you look at someone's face and then you judge something based on their face. It's like, I don't know why. You like, they're smiling, you feel happy.
Right.
Generally that's how that works. So think about all these aspects. Like the T-shirt that people see for the first time is like, that's the face that they think, that's what they think you are. So can you make that represent you better? Can you make it invoke or evoke the emotions you want to make somebody feel? And I think usually that's where I come at it from is from emotional perspective. Is like, what do you want people to feel? Do you want to feel people to feel, wow, that's really prestigious and amazing, and or do you want it to feel, well, that's really friendly and approachable, or that is that's pretty hardcore. That's like really, and a lot of gyms go for the hardcore side, and that's totally fine, absolutely legit approach. It's just I would hope people do it intentionally instead of accidentally, and know what they're doing when they do it, so then they can that because that influences every decision kind of down the chain.
Yeah, and let's be honest, most trainers that move on to gym owners, or even if you're just a trainer that has your own brand, what I did and what I think most people do is they're like, oh shoot, I got a couple clients. I should probably make a business card and I need a logo to go with it. They go on Fiverr, they go on, some other like Upwork or something like that. They pay some guy in the Philippines $30 to pull probably a stock image and tweak it with whatever colors and their name on it. I mean, listen, my first logo was just I was Gage Strength Training is my last name, super creative. And it was just like, hey, there's a line through it. Let's make that a barbell. And it was like my name with a bending barbell through it. And it was what it was. Over the years, was completely misaligned with our brand message, like what we really wanted people to feel. Our target market was the over 40 fat loss market. It was not the bending. They were not making barbells bend in their training. So we totally rebranded, and I'm curious to hear, you picked my brand apart, and I, hope we can have a conversation about that because I think it'll be helpful. But I realized that 4 or 5 years in, our brand really didn't speak to the soul of what we wanted to portray. But what advice would you give to somebody if they were either starting to design a logo in a brand, or they were like, man, maybe this logo doesn't speak to my audience. Maybe it's acting as a hindrance. And listen, I've got friends that I've talked to about this. I'm like, hey, I don't know if your target market looks at your gym and thinks it's for them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to rebrand. What would you tell somebody if, the path that they should go down in that instance?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it kind of starts, it doesn't start with the design necessarily. I mean, it starts with defining who you are. What's your target audience? How old are they? What do they like? What are other things that are, in that world theirs that are comfortable for them? What are your goals? What do you want to be? What do you know, maybe what you are right now isn't actually what your goal is. So, maybe you got to like look at your branding and it needs to have range. So maybe you don't want to paint yourself into a corner by saying I'm this one thing using a certain image that really is very specifically associated with a certain demographic. You got to it's kind of like what are you and what are you not? And if you can define kind of general parameters, you don't have to really be too specific. You don't just create like a little bit of a box for you to play within. Like, okay, I'm in this area. I'm like appealing to these people, this, this in this area of the world, because that's also very much a thing, but do I want to expand? Am I going to be an international gym? It's like, well, that's a whole different thing. Now you're
Right,
playing
right.
a little bit, and probably not watching this podcast, honestly. But yeah, and I think having a conversation like with somebody who understand, or maybe multiple people, like, to help you define that kind of stuff. A lot of times people that love their trainers, like you said, and then they want to make a business out of it, and they almost don't know they know how to train, but they don't know how to have that conversation even with themselves about what they are, what they want, or it's like I want to be able to survive as a trainer. I want to make money, and that's fine, but that doesn't really help you, um, you know, from a branding perspective, define what you are. You want to be. What are your key differentiators? And I think that is probably really good place to start is what else, who else, maybe there's somebody else that is doing what you're doing. Okay, so if you find what they are and you're like, okay, how do they define themselves? Is there a bunch of them? Let's put them all together and into a group and then say, well, okay, so what common visual aesthetics or language approaches are they using that might be something that we want to be preying on, or playing on or adopting into our brand? And then what is kind of like, that doesn't seem right, or these things are not, congruent, like you said. And I think that's what's if you can kind of create that box and kind of say, yes to this, no to that, then you start narrowing things down yourself. And then, but contrast, I find that is one of the biggest things. And especially if let's say, there's another brand in the area of the city or town or wherever the world you are, you probably there's one school of thought would say, well, you should probably like feel like you're part of that, like as in you could be alongside that other brand, and representing the same things that this other brand is that you're. But honestly, those people are competitors, so you probably want to differentiate yourself. You want contrast. You want to stand out. How do you stand out in a crowd? What colors are they using? What colors are not being used? Can we pop out in some way in people's minds? Can we create something memorable? Can we create an emotion that when they look at your brand, when they see your brand for the first time, it feels special or feels different or feels a little bit, take that other competitor that you're looking at. Is there a way that you're going to make yourself look a little bit, a little bit nicer, a little bit, I don't know, whatever it is, like whatever angle you want to get on them, because you should have some angle that you're going
Right.
to be like, what makes you a little bit, why are people going to come to your gym as opposed to somebody else's? How are you going to differentiate it now? So how are you going to communicate that differentiation immediately? And that sounds very ambitious, but it's possible.
Well, I like what you're saying because I approached it the opposite way, and I think most people do, where they're like, we're just gonna get a logo just to like get it done, and then we're gonna maybe sometimes years down the line is when they zoom out and they're like, who do we really want to speak to? What's the story that we want to enter inside their head? So you're saying the very first thing is zoom out, really think about what your differentiators are, who you want to help, who your target market is, what's the fears that they have, the story inside their head. I heard this at some point, but like one of the ways that I really looked at it was I went on Google and I Googled our keywords, which were just like personal training in Westchester, PA. And I just looked at the gyms that were popping up. And I was like, man, if I'm a 55-year-old woman that's not a fitness person, my logo is not the one they're clicking on at all. They're going to click on Fit Body Boot Camp, Burn Boot Camp. It probably looks lighter colored. It probably looks softer. The logo is probably a little more rounded. So that was kind of the story in my head. I was like, I have to pass the Google scroll test, which is like, if this pops up in their Google feed, are they going to click on mine, or are they going to immediately say, that looks scary to me?
Yeah.
Um, So zoom out, really think about who you want to be in your marketplace. Is there anything to color psychology, angles versus rounded imagery? Is there anything that like, or is it just completely unique to the individual?
There is. I wouldn't say there's no universals, as in like you can't just say that this is going to work. Oh, if your logo's red, you're going to get 20% more business or anything like that. I think it's you got to be looking at the space that you're working within. Are there other brands that you want to align with or don't want to align with that's using certain colors? That's a bit of a study. Just like do a little bit of research, and I think I guess going back to your brand. So I looked up your brand on Google, and the first image that came up was that old logo. And we talked about how do we get that image off of Google, and we still don't. Neither of us know actually how to get
Well,
remove things.
we can talk. I'm curious to explain that, but uh, is there something to like blues going to elicit a feeling of this? Red is going
Yeah.
to elicit a feeling of this. I'm
There's
curious if
certain,
that plays a
yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. There is both of those things. I think that um, the type, it's like red, certainly, it's like a little bit more aggressive. Blue, a little less aggressive. Purple, a little bit more feminine, but not necessarily feminine. Like, and it's all about how the weighting of these colors, how much power that they have and how are you using them. So yeah, so your brand went from a red and black and white aesthetic for the most part, a red and black for the most part, right? And then it
Yep.
went to more of a blue, a lighter blue. So it
Yep.
definitely makes more sense with your target audience that you're aiming for to go for that. I think it works across the board. The branding like really works well together. I think what was also interesting, you took the barbell aesthetic, kept it, but then folded it into a heart shape, which is like a nice little clever little twist, which makes people feel like, oh, well, there's a little bit of thought being put into this brand.
Right.
There's a little bit of, I mean, that slight bit of cuteness, so it takes a little bit of the edge off. The corners aren't completely crisp. There's a little bit of rounding on them. That does change. Literally takes the edge off the impression. And I think some brands want that edge. They want it. It's as hard and crisp and cracked and broken and crumbling and rusted and like that is totally great for some brands. For my brand, I wanted to stand out pretty dramatically, so I saw metal, glass, I don't know, concrete. These aesthetics were not really going to work well, like this distressed kind of a look that wasn't reaching the audience that I wanted to reach. So I made a very, I kind of went into like surf and skate culture and a little bit into these alternatives that were kind of on the fringe of fitness, which is how I saw myself. And then incorporated that into a fitness logo. But then I found I was using this really harsh black and a really harsh white, just like completely like 100% black, 100% white. The contrast was really high, so it popped. However, it also came across as a little aggressive because it's that contrast is so high. Like whereas like
Right.
you're using a white and a blue, which is like a little less contrast, a little softer approach, a little less in your face. But my way of combating that is I started incorporating honestly it's just like the most basic thing but actually worked really well is just I started putting smiley faces everywhere, and it's like the weirdest little tiny thing, but a little smiley face made a smiley face alternative logo. So I had a secondary logo that ended up on shirts and stuff like that. And that just took the edge off the brand. And just, you can't, honestly, as a human, you can't really fight it. You see a smiley face, you don't, you're not really worried about, that person or that environment or that brand. They, they are a little, it's a softer approach. You already feel good, walking in the door, looking at that person, whatever it is, they're smiling. Like it's contagious. So I just added a little bit, kind of adjusted, pushed and pulled the things a little bit, and then yeah, and just I try to keep a little bit of that, grit as much, but also with a little bit of charm. So I don't know, that's a really vague way of talking about design, but yeah, I kind of push and pull different things to work with my brand, and I can see that you've done the same kind of thing. You've kind of like toned down this, but brought up that, and then use this heart motif, but not overused it because you don't want to just, you want to make sure people know that they can get a good quality workout in your space. So there is like a bit of a balance there where you want to make sure that you're not softening yourself too much to the degree that people don't think you're quality anymore. So that's kind of
Yeah.
the thing.
So before we get into the breakdown of the brand and maybe what you feel about it, what are some mistakes that you see people make when it comes to, I mean, you mentioned a lot of them, but are there any like specific ones that you would say like definitely do not do this?
I mean, yeah, yeah. I think the biggest one is I see this people just try to they want to look like the other one. They're like, oh, this people are using shields, like a shield kind of
Yeah.
thing, or people are using barbells, or people are using like a weight plate, or like as a motif, or as part of their design, or whatever it is. And then they're like, I'll do that, and it's like, well, yeah, but and that's, I mean, it worked maybe for this business, but now, if you're too close to that, then people think you're either part of that business, or they just don't see you as anything. You just kind of get lost in the fog of every other brand. So I think the my biggest thing that I see people do is not they don't show that they're different enough. And I'd say that if you can show you're different, I wouldn't say no matter what, be different, but I'd say like if you can, through color, through design, through language, whatever way you can show that you're different, is that's going to be a benefit later. Maybe off the bat, you might people be like, oh, I don't really didn't really know how to figure out what your brand was, and like, well, that created you at least created intrigue. And like if you created intrigue, then you've created emotion. If you created emotion, then you're going to be creating emotional resonance, which is creating a memory. And then those people might just start thinking, I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that brand. They're like, oh yeah, they're the one that did that weird thing. And it's like, yeah, they did that weird thing I haven't seen before. And then eventually that just starts coming around. Maybe they become a client 2 years later. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there was something you mentioned earlier that I think would be helpful to talk about. You mentioned the secondary logo and the primary logo. If you were building like a brand suite for somebody, what would be, or maybe your brand kit, what would a person or a gym owner want to include in like their brand kit? Because we have like my full logo doesn't look great on t-shirts sometimes. So sometimes we
Yeah.
just use the heart. Sometimes we have the logo written a little bit different that fits onto different things. Is there like a brand kit that includes like a primary, a secondary, this color scheme, make sure it's organized in this way? One
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
things that's frustrated me is when, because we have 8 locations, if trainers like go on Canva and start designing like a flyer for themselves and it's the wrong font, it's like the wrong colors, like that really irks me.
Yeah. Do you have a brand kit? Do you have this?
We have one in Canva, it's just not
Yeah.
widely
Just people
used.
aren't using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Canva's pretty wild. I mean, like if you're a small business and you don't have design background, and I honestly I use Canva, but what I've done is I plugged my brand kit into Canva, so it's
Yeah.
it's fairly foolproof for the most part. Um, but even if it's foolproof, somebody will break it. Don't worry, like that's gonna happen. Uh, but yeah, I like you do a brand guide, a brand kit. You want a logo that works at billboard scale. Not that you're making billboards, but you maybe at some point you will. You want it something that's going to fit as a crest on your shirt, really small. Something that's going to be in the top corner of your letterhead. Something that's going to be on your business card. So you have to either one logo that works at all of those scales, or variations on that one logo that works for those different applications. So you got to imagine just really small, really big. The other thing you got to know is, we don't really photocopy very much anymore, but it's got to work in print. So what if it ended up in a newspaper or something like that? Does it work in just straight black and white? So if you're relying too much on, let's say, gradients or
Yeah.
colors, if that can't be conveyed in straight black and white and grayscale, and it doesn't read well, then that's a problem with your logo. You should have a logo, maybe a variation of that logo that works in straight black and white. You got to make sure things are legible, again, like at the scale and the size. You want to make sure you have a horizontal one, a vertical one, maybe something that's more like an acronym, maybe a smaller one, maybe.
That's kind of what
um,
I'm getting at is like what
yeah,
variations would you want to make sure if
yeah,
you were building a brand kit for somebody like the vertical one we've noticed that be like that's a missing one for us
yeah.
is we would love one that maybe looks better on a shaker cup versus something blocky.
Yeah, and sometimes you get into these scenarios, especially with these products you want to create, like a shaker, and you're like, oh man, it doesn't really fit on it that well, and you're like, and then you don't have another one. Um, and that's, yeah. So maybe an A and a B. Something, my A is a little asymmetrical, no pun intended, and And then my B logo, which is more of a smiley face, is just perfectly round, so it actually works in a lot of places. But I honestly, I don't have a vertical one too much. It doesn't really play. I don't feel like I need it that often. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can give you a list, but it's really just probably like um, your straight sort of square. So you think of it social media formats. You want your
Right.
square. Maybe you want like wide. Think about
Banner.
like banner, certainly banner ads. Maybe YouTube widescreen, whatever. If you're creating that kind of content, tall. You got to Instagram stories. These are the most prominent places that your brand is going to be used is in your marketing, and your marketing is going to be done on social media. So think about social media, think about the different aspect ratios of social media, and make sure you have a logo that it's going to fit in that. That's going to not going to go block someone's face. It's not going to go over top of something else. And you also have to make sure it's going to be legible on top of whatever you're shooting on top of. So you got to have a black one, a white one, a colored one. You know, it's like my folder when I give people my brand. There's probably 16 different files, but most of them are just like different color variations of the same logo. So maybe four or so different logo variations as far as like, you know, horizontal, vertical, square, circle, um, and then color variations of those.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had to do the same thing, and I'm still sometimes like I'll put my logo on a piece and I'm like, I don't love the way it contrasts with like the black or white. So we're always kind of trying to get more variations. Um, so let's talk, you've looked at my brand a little bit. What are your thoughts on what you see that we've done? I mean, be honest. I think it would be
Yeah.
helpful if you gave me some coaching on maybe what we could do to improve or change or what we did well.
Yeah. I mean, I think you never want somebody to go to a website and be confused. I can't remember which one of your sites I went to. I think I sent it to you, and it was like a site you don't use very much. But I went there. It came up when it was a little broken. Was it broken? It was like
Yeah,
not
so you went to
fully
my
finished.
podcast website,
Yeah,
which again I created, really do not use at all.
yeah,
But the other thing that you noticed was probably like 8 or 9 years ago, we were approached by Google 360, one of those like 360 camera photographers, and he was like, "Hey, I work with Google. I want to take some like virtual tour photos of your gym." I was like, "That's great." He uploaded them to our Google profile. He owns those photos, so he
yeah.
uploaded those to our Google photos. They're fucking so bad. They're old. They're so old. When we just moved into a new studio that was a karate studio, um, don't align with any of what we do. There's like a photo with an old staff member like mid workout, and I can't delete them because they're
Yeah,
hosted by a third party person. So you and I have both
yeah.
recorded them to Google, but something to take note of for anybody listening. That can be a hindrance because that's the first one that comes up when you Google my gym.
Yeah, try to get your images, your own the ones you want up as the first ones, and then you have control over them. So maybe you know you want to take that one down later. At least it's yours to take down. What else did I find? I think I went to Gauge Strength Training. The website, it's vertical. Like I was on my phone when I was looking at it. So desktop and you know mobile are very different formats.
Right.
Make sure when you're building your website, I always, you know, because I'm old school, you know, I remember in 1993 getting the internet for the first time. So, internet is square shaped relatively for me, not vertical. So I always think like website first, but it's the mobile version of your website that needs to be your number one. That's where you know 90% of your traffic is going to be. It's going to be through phone. So make sure you're looking at it. Usually when you're designing a website, you can click and change between the two. It will generally work, but sometimes it breaks between the two. So just, you
Yeah,
know, depending on what
absolutely.
format
So
you're
you're
using.
saying on mobile, mine looks like it's more optimized for desktop.
It might be. It might be. I can't say because exactly, but what happened is like what happens, things get stacked.
Right.
So I was seeing, even though your photos and your messaging was really great, it was photo with text on top, photo with text on top, photos text on top, and photo with text on top, and all of them are great and powerful things. But you know, I feel like you want to give people a chance to breathe, and but what I mean by that is change. Don't have a photo with text on top next to a photo with text on top.
Yeah, makes sense.
Have something graphic next to like something, and then having some maybe some textural things. So maybe like some kind of a textured background, but change the colors so it becomes a color experience. So people, as they scroll down your page, it starts gradually becoming more blue than it was at the top. Or I mean, really, it's very, it can be anything, but try to create a bit of a journey so you're
Yeah.
as people are scrolling down, it's like, I'm here now, I can absorb this information, instead of being like, oh man, there's five things that all kind of look the same, and they're yelling at me, which is fine. Like they're really powerful. However, it's never it. You got to give people a chance to like settle and actually digest that information as they're scrolling. And I think that as far as your brand presence, it's super powerful. It's all there. It's just like just breaking it up a little bit.
So that's more the experience of scrolling
Yeah.
on mobile, like create some space, maybe. Yeah, I get where you're almost like a slideshow where maybe
Yeah.
an image comes up, the next one comes up through versus just one right after the other, which can feel clustering. And I imagine that's kind of what you're getting at is like that could trigger a sense of feeling
Overwhelmed.
cluttered. Yeah, cluttered and overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. And then, but as far as like the brand itself is like, yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this, so I looked at it. But I can't. There's nothing glaringly anything about your brand, which is probably good to hear. As at least
Yeah.
from my perspective, it's everything's taken with all with a grain of salt. Like I'm just me. This is my opinion on things. Um, but the gauge strength training, the heart barbell logo, like it's nice, it's crisp, it's clean, and it's also just friendly and approachable. It feels welcoming. It has a lot of really great qualities, and it's just how, I guess it's how you deliver that information in a digital experience. But I mean, you also know that not everything is done through the website. Like it's a
Right.
combination of things. People are always going to be looking at you at least three different touch points. So it's like your some kind of ad they saw, your social media account, and your website, maybe your space, maybe a friend has told them about you. There's going to be at least three different reasons that they thought to message you. It won't be one. It won't
Right.
just because that one ad. So you gotta, again, that's why cohesive branding is really important, is on every platform in the physical world as well as in the digital world. You need to be presenting yourself in a very similar kind of a way, in a way that, and I think that you're doing that. So it's like it's a solid brand. And I also like that. See, how many gyms do you have? Eight? Is that right?
Eight. Yeah.
Eight. Yeah, it doesn't feel like you have eight gyms, and I say that in a good way, as in it doesn't. They all feel personal. It feels like you're speaking a language that's direct to the customer, to the audience that you're trying to reach. Um, it doesn't feel like you're mass marketing. It doesn't feel like you're doing a shotgun approach, which, I mean, a shotgun approach and what I mean by that is just like you're casting a really wide net over
Right.
as many people as possible. As like, would you like to get stronger? Vaguely, which is fine. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that you're actually speaking a language that's direct to the demographic that you're actually trying to reach, and therefore, that, I mean, I would say that that's probably a big reason why you're successful currently.
Yeah, and listen, I'm obsessed with marketing. Branding and design is something that I'm not as I could say an expert in as like copywriting, which is more my what I'm always interested in language and how people perceive language and language words we use. But design is also something that I've been really passionate about. And I noticed a massive difference in how we grew just our conversion rate, our lead flow when we rebranded from black and red with a bending barbell and also featuring just my name in giant letters, which doesn't mean anything. Um, and it also, maybe there's an agreement in this or not. Gauge has kind of a sharp feel to it. Just the name and the word. People have said it's funny. People have said like, "Man, that's a great name for a gym," and I'm like, "It's actually my last name, and it's
Yeah.
actually not the way the actual word is spelled." So I would hope I didn't just misspell the word gauge like tire gauge
I
and
wonder
create
if
a
you're
brand.
losing customers because some people are like, they just spelled gauge wrong, and they're like, I can't go to this gym. They can't
Yeah,
even
but
spell.
it's got kind of a sharp feel to it when you hear the word gauge, and I don't think that worked all that well for my brand. And when we kind of minimized the word gauge and went more with the heart logo, again, coincidence or what, we definitely saw a big shift in our perception and the conversion rates and the business benefits from that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that would I don't think that's coincidence. I think that's absolutely I wouldn't say that Gage feels aggressive. I could see, yeah, maybe it's more leaning that direction, like just by its nature. But I mean, if I had a name like Gage, I would absolutely call my gym Gage. At the same time, they do say don't put your name on a business because what if you want to sell it later? Then like
Yeah,
it's
and
gonna
I my other brand is Engage Personal Training. Luckily, it's close enough that I could keep a very similar feel and vibe and branding. But if I had to start over, I would not have put my name in it, and not for the reason of selling, but just because I'm not the guy there. I'm not the one meeting every single client anymore. My worry is people come in, they're like, "Well, who is Gage?" And I'm not there, and that's why I didn't want to do it with our
Mm.
other locations is I wanted it to be something that could scale without me being the guy.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, and I think that's also a great example of branding from a personnel standpoint because you need to have every person represent what the brand is, and that what's interesting, what I found is that the brand evolved. Like initially, it started as me. I was the brand, just like you,
Right.
but the brand is now not me. I mean, it's a good like 70% me, but there's a 30% that it's evolved from where I started and where I thought it was going to go, and that's come through tactically, making those decisions and actually strategically realizing that not every customer is going to identify with me, and that's really important not to be the only face, at least if you're trying to reach some like larger audiences. um but yeah, but the other part is like empowering people within your staff. If you can get those right people to that understand your brand, that might see opportunities to expand and explore your brand and open up sort of areas of your brand that you didn't think was possible, or maybe you could never actually have reached yourself. So I think that's something that's happened for me. It's my brand has evolved to a degree past my capabilities, and I'm really happy about it because like I'm just it means it's going. It's
Right.
traveling without me. It's like what was that like? Didn't there was like one of the first like Tesla cars was sent into outer space and is currently traveling through the universe on its own. Do you know about this thing?
Is that true? I don't think I
Yeah,
knew
I'm
that.
pretty sure that's true. Anyway, that's how I see my brand, just like flying through space, just like I had it, I pushed it in that direction, but it's gonna go and it's gonna keep going as long as it's allowed to.
That's great. Well, what else would somebody need to know about like crafting their brand and getting it to speak? I mean, we talked about a lot of different things. Are there any brands that you feel are completely missing the mark, whether it's fitness or not? I'm curious if you see some stuff that you're like, man, if only I could be in charge of creating the brand for this company.
Oh, I mean, it comes back to kind of the beginning of the conversation where it's like I see it all the time, but that's problem with my brand is I can't turn it off. I just see commercial and be like, well, they could have done that better by just
Yeah.
changing this word to that, or not showing this person looking like they're you know smelling something stinky or something. I don't know. There's so many ways, and I don't have great examples off the top of my head because um it's just that's literally there's just so many. I see them all the time. However, what I wanted to say, because we're talking about all these things, and we're trying to people are probably going to get, if they're watching this, they're actually paying attention. They might feel a little tense of like, I haven't defined any of these things in my brand. I haven't done any of this stuff. I need to stop everything and define this stuff. And I'd say, yeah, at some point, but don't slow down what you're doing. Don't stop what you're doing, and don't feel like you can't start if you haven't figured these things out, because some of them will be figured out in time. So there's a way to start. A lot of times I kind of keep things open ended. So I'll start along a path where I can, I don't want to choose a color because I don't know what color I want yet. I just don't know what's going to resonate. I don't know what's going to work yet. So so I started with black and white, and then I've that's allowed me infinite options in the future. So it's again like don't paint yourself into a corner. Don't stop producing. like if you've got a couple, if you got half of these things defined, that's a great way to start. Just rely on half of them. Just don't go off into left field and do something really crazy that doesn't align with the first four things that you've done. Like really just have it grow and evolve. But but really, yeah, I think the biggest thing is doing. So a lot of times, and a lot of times why people don't value branding to the same degree that I do. Um, that's totally okay because what they're doing is they're just doing, they are the brand. They're living it and breathing it. And so it doesn't always need to be, I guess, as literal or as specific as maybe I've made it sound during this conversation. At least at first, and then later the need will arise where you need to rebrand or refresh or explore new areas of your brand, define some things, create a brand kit when it's not just you, when it's you've got three or four people you're working with, let's say. It's like, yeah, you're gonna have to create some rules that they can follow so that they can exercise and breathe the brand and breathe life into the brand in other ways without you being there.
Yeah, and listen, I think from seeing a lot of the people that have liked and commented on my podcasts and Instagram, there's a lot of people that could probably use a rebrand. Because I think there's a lot of people that came from the same background as myself, which was just we went on Fiverr and we, got some guy to get a stock image and put my name next to it. This was before Canva really existed, so I didn't know how to do design stuff myself. Um, so if you're listening, I went through a rebrand. I would say don't be scared. Don't be scared to like really reevaluate your logo, even the name of your business. Uh, if it's not congruent with the target market and what you really think is the most effective thing. People romanticize or overvalue certain parts of their business, I think, and sometimes you just need to take an objective look at like, does this really make sense for us?
Yeah, and I think that there's rebranding, which you did, which is pretty significant, and then there's like refreshing, which is like a much less to a
Right.
far lesser degree. And that usually when I would come into a brand that already exists, I would try to understand what their goals are that they're not able to accomplish with their current branding, if they feel like this is not hitting that mark. And ideally, I would want to refresh as opposed to rebrand. So maybe update the colors. So maybe if it's a blue, let's try a blue that, you know, feels like it fits this demographic a little bit more. Let's try rounding some corners instead of having them sharp. Let's try doing the same logo, but let's redraw it. And so it feels so it's new, but not too new. And but at the same time, like a refresh, like you said, or rebrand, like you said, is you're not going to lose customers from a rebrand. That's not going to happen. People are not going to not go to your gym because you changed the logo or changed the name. All those current members are still going to be there. And what's going to be interesting is that you actually will probably reach a new audience because you're just a little smarter, a little more tactical, a little more strategic in the reason why you're rebranding and what you're going to be presenting moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, not that, but at the same time, do not rebrand more than once. Like if you're like, don't do it every
Yeah.
too often because that obviously you want to create some brand recognition. What I'm finding with my business is a few years ago, I would tell people, "Oh yeah, we're this gym we're called Stay Gold. And they wouldn't. I was like, "Yeah, we're in like Parkdale." I'm like, maybe I think I've heard of that one." They'd say that, and now it's completely flipped. Where if I say the name, people know me more than I know them, and that's really interesting and a really weird thing for me because I'm a relatively shy person, or at least historically, and I've been put into the light where people know my brand and people know me that more people know me than I know, if you know what that means. If that's
Yeah.
sounds and that's bizarre and that's a strange feeling, but that's the power of your brand and getting the right foot forward is that you can get in influence and affect people's lives, get into their conscious, get into their subconscious, and and it could be like I sort of said earlier, it's like you have a client that you don't even know you have yet, like that you've won this person over because they've been looking at your brand for a long time, and finally, like this is the whatever Thursday night at 4 in the morning, they buy a
Yeah.
membership in the middle of the night. And they're like, yeah, I've seen enough of this guy. I got to buy the membership. And we get that all the time.
Yeah.
Like every, I'd
Late
say,
night scrolling. Yeah.
yeah, and much. I'm like, I always see that like at 4 a.m. Really? Okay. And then they must have saw an ad or something like that, and that's great. I'm always like, we'll see if they want to keep their membership when they sober up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We get a lot of the like 1, 2 a.m. We know that you're just laying in bed. Like, yeah.
I was thinking we should do one of those like 1-800. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but there's like the late night, like call in, call now, talk to Cindy, she's waiting.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Get a gym membership.
We actually had the idea to do because we again, this is a tangent, but on that we thought about doing like a voicemail service because we imagine a lot of people are afraid to call a gym and be sold to or be pressured. We get a lot of leads that don't want to talk to a salesperson. So at one point we were like, maybe we should just do like, remember the old movie phone where it was like
Yeah.
select one to learn about, our pricing, select two to get our address. But we never did it because I don't know if that service still exists really.
Well, I remember I called the bank and they definitely have that service where
True.
it's like, "Hey, have you lost your card? Have you done this?" It's like,
Yeah.
but
Um,
I don't know either. We in Toronto, I mean, I don't know how your market is, but yeah, people do not want to answer the phone up here. They just don't want to talk on the phone, and we try to get them on the phone, and we're trying to like just whatever we can do to have a real interaction with them because I feel like if you can actually people treat you like a human once they've had a human interaction with you. If
right.
they have once you have a like a visual conversation, digital conversation, a phone conversation, people are far less likely to ghost you at that point. So if you can just get that little hook, then all of a sudden they're just going to treat you more like a human as opposed to just like like some computer. Which I mean, honestly, we don't know. Half the time we're probably talking to computers these days. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, Joel, thought this was awesome. If somebody was curious, wanted to reach out, wanted to, see your brand, what's the best way that they could experience what you do? I know you got a website with some of your work. You do contracted work, so
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to check out my brand, Stay Gold, you can go on Instagram and it's at Stay Gold Toronto. But if you want to see it on our website, it's staygold.fit. That's .fit. And that's a pretty great visual representation of our brand. It kind of like shows everything in a really robust kind of way. And then for me personally, my name is Joel Tellier, and if you go to joeltellier.com, you can see a bunch of my work. It's been a while since I updated any of the work there, but some really fun stuff. And I'm always down to just chat and jam. You don't have to hire me for something. I just love brainstorming and kind of like breaking down things, talking about your problems, see if I can if there's something I can do to solve things. A lot of times, and what things that get me going is those small things like, oh, if we just did this, then this thing would be 400% better than what it is. And it's like the smallest little thing. And I just love finding those little hacks.
awesome. Well, Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you.